So hopefully I've got it zoomed into where you can see it well. You definitely need some flux. It's not a requirement, but I would say use it. It makes for a better solder. So you dip the wires into the solid flux, but it's a little bit hard, so we're going to stick the soldering iron in there, get us a nice wet spot, and then I'll dip the wires in a nice liquid flux. And it looks like we got a little stray hanging out there. We're going to have to fix that. That won't let it go in there. Okay, so that flux will make this soldering job a whole lot easier. Hardest part is lining everything up and not melting something. Got the little ring. I'm going to line my cable up, slide the ring on, and then I'm going to crimp it. That gives me a good mechanical connection, and now I'm going to give it a soldered connection. So I'm going to sit that right over there. Hopefully you can see that. Soldering iron's hot. Dip it in the flux. Grab the solder. Put the iron under the ring. Put a little bit of solder onto the iron so that it helps with the heat transfer. And then put the solder on the wire so that when it starts to melt, it will wick inside. And she's not very cooperative today. There, I see the flux starting to boil. There goes the solder. And we have a good solder joint. Now, I'm also going to simply put a little bit of solder around this ring, because the solder will give a better electrical connection against that lock washer. It's not necessary, but that's how I like to do it. Sling the solder off so I don't get it falling where I don't want it. Do the same thing with the other side. You want a really good electrical connection because you do not want to lose any of your RF energy. And that's not gonna, that doesn't want to play. Let's see what we can do here. Don't hit that RG58. And I'm going to go ahead and tin up the rest of this cable except for the very, very end, because I want a little flexibility there. A little more flexibility than the soldered line allows. And I'm going to do the same thing again. Run a little bit of solder around that ring. Pump something hot with that solder. Soldering is done. I'm going to turn off my iron, clear the way, and then we'll run the cable. Okay, next we're going to mount the SO239, which is the antenna feed line connection. We're going to mount it into the CPVC fixture. So first thing to do, take the lid off. Just 2 screws, got a rubber seal. And this is where I'm going to mount mine. Now it'll come in from the inside, but I'm going to mount it right in this hole. So we're going to pick, hopefully, a large enough drill bit to cut that hole, but I don't have one. So this is the biggest I have, and I don't have a hole saw that small. We're just going to do it the Marine Corps way. And drill that hole, and then we're just going to use the drill to enlarge it. And go a little bit at a time. So you don't want it too big. We'll seal it with RTV, but we don't want it too big. We're almost there. And now you want to make sure that an SO239 on a cable will connect and not be loose. And it does. Next step, we're going to bolt this in. So we're going to pick screws. Number 6 screws is what we want. So we're going to pick a drill bit that works for number 6 screw. 1/8 is a little small, but once we get the holes drilled, the screws will go through it. So we're going to drill from the inside. We're going to drill the first one hole. You can see how I've got that in there. I don't know. It's sitting in there like that, and the outside. We're going to drill these holes, put the screws in, but we'll come back and put RTV. So the first one is the only one we're going to drill. And we're going to put our number 6 32 pitch 1/2 inch stainless screws. Again, all my hardware on this project is stainless steel. We're going to stick the first one thread it on and drive the screw in, and it's secure. Now we can drill the other 3 holes. Now the only thing that's problematic about stainless is it's not magnetic, so my fancy magnetic screwdriver tip does not help. So when I remove it to put the RTV in there and seal it, I will use self-locking nylon insert 632 stainless steel nuts to secure it, and 1 washer number 6 stainless steel to attach the ground to the screws on the SO239. So now all we have to do is come over here, figure out how far in that pipe's going to go, because we want 18 inches. I'm sorry, we want 3/4 of an inch from the end of that pipe is where we want the cable to enter. So the next step, cut the other end off the cable and find a good drill bit size for getting the cable in there without leaving a big hole. 3/16 is snug, so let's try 3/16. We can always make it a lot bigger. We want this hole to be 3/4 to an inch, right about where that 3 or the slash is, and you want it straight down. And now to take a little bit of strain from having to bend the RG58, we're going to angle that hole so that the RG58 can go in at a bit of an angle. Make sure there's no rough edges. Feed the cable into the hole, and we might have to go to the bigger one. Oh, nope, she's going just fine. Now we feed it in until it comes out the other end. And you could make this hole a little bigger, make it easier to feed in there, but then you just have more of an opportunity for water intrusion into your antenna. See if that's a little easier to feed. Oh yeah. Just pulling it through. Okay. Now we have to twist this. Because the ground element goes down. So we'll put a little twist to it as we're pushing it in, and there we go. The ground element is on the bottom. You need to have enough room with a little slack. We're going to actually mount these on here now. We want a little extra cable there, just so we know we can get these off of here. Don't want to flatten it down and get it all squished down. You want to have enough that you can get these off if you have to. Okay, so now we're down into the other end. We'll seal this with RTV when we go to seal the other one. So, I'm going to cut a little extra. Make sure we have enough. Give it 2 goes, just in case. And we've got enough cable left for another antenna, even though we screwed up that first piece. So now we're going to go back to the razor blade. Now we don't need as much as on the other end. We just need enough to get to that center electrode, solder that, and enough to put a ring on the other end. And now comes the tricky part. We want to tin these on the ends. And this one I'm going to trim a little bit because it's a little narrowed down at the end. And we're going to solder on the ring and then solder this piece into the center conductor. And I'll be back as soon as I grab the soldering gun.